Hey guys, welcome to GFN Gaming. I'm Russ, and today I'm going to do a tutorial on how I like to paint my orcs. So here we have the humble orc boy ready to go. He's loaded up with a big shooter because, gotta have that daka. So here's the finished product and some other orcs I painted using the same recipe and techniques. So I'm painting some orcs for a kill team at the moment anyway, and I thought I would make a video on how I paint this skin, killing 2 grots with 1 chopper basically, as now I should be able to remember my own orc skin recipe when I come back to expand the kill team. I prime using Vallejo's black surface primer with an airbrush. I do sometimes add a zenithal highlight using the grey primer just to lock in the shadows, but today I'm just going to do the video from a standard black primer. The first color I'm using today is Citadel's Wag Flesh. So this is the base coat and I want it to be quite smooth. So as the good book says, thin your paints and do a few thin coats just to get a nice smooth finish. Don't have to be too neat at this stage. Everything else will get painted at a later stage anyway. Now for the shadows, recesses and underside of the orc skin, and I'm using Lupercal Green. I'm mixing it in with some Larmian Medium or just water to make sure it's nice and thin. I'm applying this in more of a wash, perhaps a little thinner, so sort of a halfway house between a glaze and a wash. And I'm putting this into any recess and any other area that I want it to be a little darker, so between fingers, creases in the arm, and on the undersides of the arms also. The first highlight will be Warboss Green, again by Citadel, and I'm applying this in much the same way as the Lupercal Green was to the shadowed area, except this is focused on the areas of the skin that we want to be lighter. So the general technique for applying this is the same as a glaze, so you get the watered down paint onto your brush and drag your brush towards the area where you want the colour to be the most intense. So this is where you end up taking your brush off the mini. So for example, on the fingers, on the hand, brush towards the knuckle from either side. This will mean that the color builds in intensity at the knuckle and blends out towards the fingers, the other side of it. So as I said before, this is how I'm painting the skin for a kill team of orcs. When I've painted orcs in larger numbers in the past, I've skipped a few steps and I've also used a makeup brush for most of the skin. So this is one I got from Boots. It's pretty cheap and it comes with a number of different heads. So I'm just using the smaller ones here, but the others are actually really good for terrain, getting through your terrain quickly. So get some paint on the brush and then get rid of the excess like a normal dry brush, and then just work the paint in small circular motions, building the color gradually. I tend not to wash the brush in between if I'm changing colors just because it takes ages to dry these brushes, but be careful you don't contaminate your paint. So after Warboss Green, I do the same thing, again, small circles with Ogre and Camo. So I don't think the effect looks bad. It looks a little powdery, but that's not necessarily bad for skin. But at this stage, if I was doing a ton of them, I would do this and then I would wash it with Anthonian Camo Shade. And then depending on what the finish looked like, I might add a matte varnish or just some Larmian Medium. And then I'd probably be done. I might do 1 or 2 more of the steps that I'll show you later on. But for tabletop, that would pretty much be done. So at this stage, I'm just going to continue on with the Warboss, add a second coat just to get a nice smooth finish. Again, just kind of a glaze consistency. So before I move on to the second highlight, I'm just going to go back and darken some of the shadow areas. So to do this, I'm just going to add some black. I'm using Vallejo Model Color Black to the Lupercal Green, water it down and just start going back over the areas that I want to be just a little bit darker. And now for the second highlight, I'm going to mix some of that Warboss green in with the Ogre and Camo. Again, adding some water or some Larmian Medium to get a nice thin consistency and then applying it as before like a glaze just towards those edge areas like the tips of the ears, the peaks of the muscles, the knuckles. Again, dragging towards where you want the color to be the most intense. And again, just finishing this off, but just using the Ogre and Camo on its own, using the same technique as before. So moving away from the skin and we're looking at the mouth and we're just going to paint the entire area tusk or fur for now. So I like to add a little bit of purple to the eyelids. So I create a small wash out of Gene Stealer purple and just kind of flood the area of the eyes with it. And then just wash the area with Druchii Violet. If you were wanting to add any more shadows, or darken any more shadows, I should say, I generally use Drakenhof Nightshade just to add to the areas that you want to be a little bit darker still, so the creases of the arm, in between the fingers, that kind of thing. So this is my favorite part about doing the orc flesh, and that's starting to bring in the pinks and peach colors. So the first color I'm going to use here is Scale 75's Pink Flesh. It is Scale 75, so you're going to have to shake it a lot for it to kind of come out well, but once it does, it's great. Just add a bit of Lamia Medium to it to again get that kind of glaze consistency, and we're going to add this to the very peaks, kind of almost in a stippling motion to the muscles area, and then also again in the glaze technique towards the knuckles and elbows, and then edges of the ears, that kind of thing. Anything that you want to add a little bit of human skin tone to it as well. We're going to continue on with the pinks, and we're going to add some Emperor's Children, a little bit of white into that pink flesh from Scale 75 just to bring in that peach, and doing the same thing again, watering it down to a glaze and then just kind of brushing it into the center of those areas like the knuckle, brushing it from either side towards the elbow just to get that kind of at the area where the skin's stretched the most, you can kind of see it through, and it's bringing in those pink colors. At this stage, that's pretty much it for the actual green of the flesh. Because of all the different washes you might have ended up using, I would generally do a coat of Lamia Medium just to give it a universal coat, basically, so it's not looking shiny in some areas and matte in others. Moving on to the other areas of the model, I'm just going to flood the mouth with Carroburg Crimson. Leaving the mouth to dry now, and we're just going to use the Demonette Grey to pick out the lower eyelid on the orc. So we've already done the Gene Stealer Purple and the Druchii Violet. This is just to touch the top area of the lower eyelid. And then of course just to white the eyes. So with the Carroburg Crimson now dry, we're going to move on to the teeth and the tongue. So I'm going to start with Arabic Shadow from Scale 75. Make sure you give it a good shake, and we're just going to cover the whole teeth in this color. We're going to start off the tongue with a base of Thousand Suns Blue, and then we're going to wash the entire area with Drakenhof Nightshade. So we're going to go back to Scale 75 and the teeth, and we're going to take Mojave White, and we're going to mix that in with the Arabic Shadow to make a nice mid-tone for the teeth before we go back over with just the Mojave White. With the Drakenhof Nightshade now dry, we're going to come back in and highlight the tongue with Araman Blue. Then we're just going to add a little bit of white and just do a little bit of stippling at the very end of the tongue to give it that kind of porous look. And that's it. That's basically how I like to paint the orcs. Again, for Kill Team a little bit more than others. If I was doing the dry brush technique, I'd probably do one level of the peach on the elbows just because I really like that part of it, but then I would call it a day. Anyway, thanks so much for watching, guys. Make sure you like and subscribe. Cheers. Bye now.